So of those things is to kind of somewhat to measure concern the person's action and decide, and that also will aid, and that will also clarify regarding his final abode regarding al-Jannah wal nar. So of those qualities that are highlighted regarding the Muslim are these three that are mentioned. So we'll try to cover each individually, separately, regarding the first meaning that a person speak good or remain silent. Also regarding a person that he honors his neighbor, and third, that he also honors his guests. So regarding concern this hadith, regarding these three matters. So the first of those three matters regarding that it mentioned regarding the one who believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day, then it mentioned a person should speak good or remain silent. So that's kind of somewhat it shows regarding this hadith. It shows regarding concerning that the Muslim, regarding that the person, that if he speaks, then he tries to speak those things that are beneficial. Whether those benefits will come back, whether concerning that speech, regarding, or he remains, if there's nothing good to be said, then he remains silent. So from this they mention regarding that, from this regarding that of this khair, that is being concerning this of this khair, that it goes back to two matters. Regarding concerning a person speaks regarding al-khair, it goes back to two types. Khair regarding concerning those things that the person, he benefit from him directly, from things that he's doing personally. So of khair, that a person benefit from this personally, there's benefit for him personally by way of things that he's doing to benefit himself. So of those things that have personal benefit to oneself of khair, that a person, that things that are done by way of speech. So by way of the things that are done by way of his speech, by speaking and the likes. So this would include concerning benefit, personal benefit by way of his speech. Then the person, one, that is good, one, dhikrullah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by way of always concerning to not mention the supplication, or that dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that also will come also by way of adhkar, that is said, by dua, that is said, also at tasbih, the person always also mentioned the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by way of uttering this, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, Allahu akbar, la ilaha illallah, these type of tasbih. Also qira'atul Quran. So also the person of those things that personal benefit by way of the tongue, by way of speech, is also reading of the Quran. And as mentioned regarding and of those things that we're reminded of in the khutbah regarding concerning of yesterday, concerning of those things regarding the Quran, that we give attention to the Quran and we try to have that alaqa, that type of relationship with us and the Quran at all times, and the least, and on a daily, and to an extent we will try to do so on a daily basis. So at least that the person that he tries to give some attention to the Quran, that he gives that some amount of time to the Quran by reading of the Quran, and also said by extension regarding concerning also Hadith. So regarding concerning al-ilm and nafi', that a person regarding Islamic studies, that a person in his day or in the week that he put aside a certain time with the Quran on a daily basis. And we have no excuse, no one have excuse regarding concerning and for the Quran, that is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing us in this book, and it's the most honored book and revelation, and it's a guidance for mankind. Then we should have this we should have that consistent relationship with the Quran, which is by way of qira, by way of reciting of the Quran, and also adding to this by way of tadabbur, by way of also a person adding to reciting the Quran, that a person also that he tries to understand the Quran. So that the person read from the Quran, that each day he'll read a portion of the Quran is juz, and that person it may differ one person to another regarding what is his juz of the Quran. So some people that read a complete juz per day, and that would be about 20 pages. Or the person do 5 pages or 1 page or 50 line, each person according to his ability. But whatever he says, he tries to hold to it. And if he was to miss it, then he makes up. So the Prophet ﷺ, certain act that he mentioned, the Prophet ﷺ would do, that for example, in Ramadan, he would have itikaf the last 10 nights. He missed 1 year, the next year he made it up. So because of the consistency, so the person regarding the Quran, that the person have proportion for himself, that he will recite, he will read per day, for example, 50 ayat or 100 ayat. Each day. If he was to miss, did not make that number for that day, then he would make it up the next day. So it add to his normal amount that day. But overall concern that the Muslim, that we constantly read the Quran. And also, of those things that we try to also have, that is regards to reading of a hadith. So every day the person try to read even maybe 5 hadiths. Especially concerning from a Sahih Bukhari or Sahih Muslim, just reading of the hadith. So reading of hadith and try to see what benefits can be taken, the basic benefit can be taken from the hadith without anything being complicated. So the person have that as a system, a daily system of a hadith every other day. Or if the person want to keep so every day 3 hadiths. So keep it like an odd number. So every day 3 hadiths, and X amount of pages that are read each day. So something regarding al-ilm. So they mentioned regarding concerning of those things regarding speech, that is personal benefit. As they mentioned concerning al-ilm, the person learning of ilm, ta'allum al-ilm. Also amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar. So by way of speech, there's a personal benefit, that of good, the person encouraging good and forbidding of evil. So those are the things that the person try to implement in his day-to-day life. That would be for his own personal benefit. And of those things regarding amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar, he starts with himself and those in his environment. So the first, that he starts with himself regarding encouraging good upon himself and also forbidding evil upon himself. So starting with oneself first, then others. Then also you have the second type of khair regarding concerning al-khair yani li ghayri, concerning by way of extending that good towards others. So doing of good, those things that you're involved in, that it is benefiting others. So that's a concern, which is concerned by way of qawl, by way of speech. So of that thing regarding concerning of khair, that a Muslim that speaking of giving salam, so of al-khair from one Muslim to another, of trying to benefit other Muslim, abshu salam, that a person that spread the salam between a Muslim. So we're not become of those Muslim that will only give salam to those that we know only. But any person that we recognize as a Muslim, that we give them salam. So of those things regarding good towards others, extending good towards others, benefiting others by way of our speech, that a Muslim can somewhat that as-salam to others, teaching of others for those who are able, giving da'wah to others within our ability. So all of these are extending good to others. So these are things that Muslim can as a way of good regarding of speech, good regarding things of speech. Also saying a kind word to others. So those are the things that the Muslim try to adopt regarding his behavior and how he deals with others. So these are things regarding al-good, al-khair, either thing that is personal benefit or by way of others benefiting by way of good. So that mentioned regarding concerning al-kalam, that of those I've mentioned regarding that al-kalam, speech, ala khams al-aqsam, that we can divide speech into 5 categories. So speech can be divided into 5 categories. Speech that is considered to be wajib, so kalam which is wajib. So of those kalam that is wajib, that a person, for example, in salah. So salah, that it is wajib that a person have to read Surah Al-Fatiha. Those azkar al-wajiba in his salah, so those things are said because it's compulsory that a person have to say these things. Also, al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar, that at times it could be wajib upon the person that he has to encourage good and forbid evil by way of speech. So those things are said, that is kalam al-wajib. The second is regarding concerning where they said this kalam is wajib, where it is not allowed for a Muslim to be silent about those matters. So it's not allowed for the Muslim to be silent on those matters because it's wajib that he has to utter and to speak of these things. The second type of kalam, it is mustahab, something which is mustahab to be done. So there's something which is highly preferred to be done. It's not wajib, where it's a must upon a person to say these things, but it's something which is highly recommended and praiseworthy for a person to say these things. So we said that in a kalam al-mustahab, that would include concern the person saying his azkar. So after salah, saying his azkar, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, that is not wajib but by way of mustahab. But a person try to say these after salat and try to alter this. So his azkar, So these type of things, the person that it's upon the person that he tries to alter these things, see that they are mustahab. With a person that is prays for saying when he enter the masjid, he says dua. When he leaves the masjid, he says his dua. These things are not wajib, but highly recommend to be done. Also, the next level of kalam, which is concerning kalam al-haram, kalam al-muharram. So kalam, speech that is haram. So of those things that the person is saying things that are haram, that shouldn't be said, where the person now is bringing upon himself the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of those things that he mentioned, of those things that can be stated regarding al-kalam al-haram, muharram, would be concerning al-kadhib, that a Muslim, when he speaks, he lies. That a person, regarding concerning al-ghiba, he backbite others. When namima, he carry tales to create a problem between others. Shahadatul zur, the person he gives false witness. The person, kalam haram, the person he swears, the type of foul languages that he uses. So this type of kalam is haram upon a Muslim. So the Muslim, that he should not utter those words, try to avoid saying these things, because now these things would be against him. And also the fifth that is mentioned, that you have the fourth is kalam al-makruh. So kalam makruh, something which is disliked. But so those type of kalam which is disliked, where the person that he talks, I said that the person talk too much, when it becomes a nuisance for others. You're talking too much. You're not saying anything which is haram, but you're being too excessive regarding your speech. You're talking too much, and you're saying things that there's no fa'idah. The person mentioned so of those type of kalam that the person to be mindful when it becomes a makruh. The person saying things that is of no benefit. Also, so that's concerning that and the fifth and the final of those aqsam, levels of speech regarding kalam al-mubah. So kalam al-mubah, kalam which is allowed. It is allowed regarding concerning a person that speaks about general matters. The person speak about concerning general matters regarding concerning a person. So those things are kalam. Talk about things regarding food. Talk about drink. So those things are allowed. So kalam, it falls into those 5 categories. At times wajib, at times mustahab, at times haram, at times makruh, and at times mubah. So those are concerned at different levels of the person. Look to see if he speaks. We mentioned before that Imam Shafi'i Imam Shafi'i Rahimah's statement that before the person speaks, he thinks about what he's going to say. So before the person actually uttered these words, he think about what he wished to say. So I mentioned also the same thing regarding as-samt, where they mentioned concerning that as-samt, where the person that is able to speak but choose not to speak. So the person has the ability and is able, there's nothing that forbids him and stops him from speak, but samt, where the person choose not to be excessive in his speech and not to say things. So they mentioned that sukut, where the person maybe is sukut, the word sukut and samt, where the person doesn't speak, it could that a slight difference, where as samt, the person able but choose not to. The person who's able to speak but choose not to speak. That's a samt. And a sukut, with the person being silent, with something a person is silent because he's unable to speak. So there may be a reason that a person is unable to speak, so that's why he's being silent. So also concerning a samt, with a person, if he is unable to say that which is good, then the hadith mentioned a person should remain silent. And especially so, samt also could fall into the same thing in those 5 categories. At times, samt is wajib, that a person should remain silent. So, wajib, the person, samt, we have to be silent if he knows he's going to say something which is haram. He knows he's going to say speech which is, he's going to lie. He's going to say things to deceive others, to misguide, to mislead others. Things regarding that samt is wajib, regarding things regarding al-bidah. So the person regarding encouraging people regarding bid'ah, the person should be silent on those things and not utter those things, because it's a bid'ah. So to speak about bid'ah, then that becomes wajib, the person, he remains silent, because it's a bid'ah. Also regarding as-samt mustahab, regarding concerning that excessiveness in speech. Excessiveness regarding concerning that thing that doesn't concern the person. The person regarding certain things on the news, in the media, the person, it is mustahab at times to remain silent on some of the things that you may read in the news or in the media, because those things have no benefit. Of no benefit. And the other concerning as-samt al-muharram, regarding concerning a time with a person, you are required to speak. You're required to speak. So as-samt al-muharram, the person chooses to be silent, but in this case, he's supposed to, it's upon him that he should actually come forward and speak. So the person regarding concerning that the person might see a munkar that he's capable of making inkar upon. So you see something that is munkar and evil, where he has the ability that he's able to can say something, and he chooses to remain silent. So the person sit amongst others, and here the people, they're making ghibah of another person, they're backbiting a person, speaking things. I know that person, I know Fulan, and I know him for a long time. But what you are saying about him, I know that to be a lie. I know that to be completely a lie. And I sit and I remain silent, hearing you lie about that person. Then that is haram for the person to remain silent. When you hear the person saying things about that person that is not, and you know it to be a lie, then for you to remain silent and give the impression that what he's saying is correct, then that becomes haram. So those says it falls into different matters regarding as-samt at times that a person is not, so it falls into different categories. Also that concerning that as-samt, regarding concerning that matter, that you find that other thing that was said of that among the Salaf, that you find a thing that is praiseworthy of their character is regarding that they are people who they didn't like speaking unnecessarily. Where it was considered to be a person that was as samt, was of a character they cite as something praiseworthy. Something was praiseworthy, a person that he knew to somewhat not to speak when there was no need for him, there's no need for it. That is mentioned by Muhammad ibn Ajlan, قال إنما الكلام أربعة. Ibn Ajlan, Muhammad ibn Ajlan, he mentioned إنما الكلام أربعة. That kalam is four, fall into four categories. And تذكر Allah, and the person to be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to ذكر Allah. وأن تقرأ القرآن, the second, and for the person to recite the Quran. وتسأل عن علم, and the person asking about him, لتخبر به, so he can be informed. So the person asking about knowledge, so he can be informed. And he mentioned the fourth, أو تكلموا فيما يعنيك من أمور دنياك, and for the person that to speak about things of the dunya that will be to your benefit, that is of your concern. So things of the dunya that's of your concern, then you should speak about those things. So they mention kalam arba, categories, speech regarding the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reciting of the Quran, asking about knowledge, so the person can be informed, and the fourth, the person speaking about things that relates to his dunya and his benefit. It is stated by Ibn Mas'ud to the other extent that Ibn Abi Dunya rahimahullah, and he has many books on different topics. So Ibn Abi Dunya, that he has books on many topics. So after those books, he has a book called As-Samt. He has a book that is called As-Samt, that discuss concerning the virtue of those people who were able to generally they spoke not much. He mentioned Ibn Mas'ud, Wallahi alladhi la ilaha illahu ma ala al-ard ahaqqu bitul sijn min al-lisan. So he mentioned that he swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that there is nothing on the face of the earth that is deserving more to be held in prison than that of your tongue. And it says, not a long, as bitul as-sijn, to serve a long sentence than that of your tongue. So it shows regarding the Salaf, they were very mindful regarding the use of their tongue. It is stated by Wahb ibn Munabbih, he mentioned, أجمعت الحكماء على أن الرأس رأس الحكمة الصمت. He said it's something agreed upon by people who are the wise men, the people between the wise men or people of wisdom, that أن رأس الحكمة, that the peak, the primary thing of hikmah is as-samt. The person who is able to be silent, to not speak, to control his speech. So that's concerning, that shows concern the Salaf regarding concerning matters regarding of speech, regarding as-samt. So because of the hadith, we'll go to the next. So that's concerning that with samt, it goes back to the individual. So that's something that goes back to the individual regarding concerning as-samt. And also regarding concerning as-samt, also regarding that I mentioned that qawl Allah bighayri ilm, that a person speak about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without knowledge. So of those things that a person, so the person, if he speaks good. And also if the person unable to say a thing which is of benefit, of value, of any worth and benefit to others, then he remains silent. So is the person now trying to have that, the person tried to discipline his speech and know when to speak and when not to speak. Know when to speak and when not to speak. The next of those things that discussed regarding of those three adab that a Muslim should try to cultivate within ourselves is mentioned, فَلْيُكْرِمْ جَارُهُ. So the second that he mentioned, and yukrim jaruhu. So regarding concerning hukuk jar, so this shows regarding that as for the neighbor, that he has hukuk, that he has rights upon us. So of those things, فَلْيُكْرِمْ جَارُهُ, that the person that he should try to honor his guests. He should try to honor his guests. And some narration of the hadith, as in that mentioned regarding the same hadith about they mentioned, فَلَا يُؤْذِي جَارُهُ. So the person mentioned in some narration, you should honor your guests. And in other narration mentioned, فَلَا يُؤْذِي جَارُهُ, that you should not harm your neighbor. So can I somewhat give the same meaning, to honor your neighbor and also not to harm your neighbor. So with this, that you find that regarding concerning ikram al-jar, which is the neighbor, that ulama have mentioned regarding concerning the person who lives. So the jar concerning that what is intended by ikram al-jar ihsan ilayhi, that a person that he tries to be good towards his neighbor, and he tries to honor his neighbor and also to give his neighbor the rights that he's deserving, which is al-kafal adha anhu, with a person also that he doesn't per se do anything that would be harmful towards his neighbor. So they mentioned that the neighbor, you have different categories of neighbors. So all of the neighbors that they fall into different categories. So of those things regarding the neighbor, regarding of the thing to be mindful of regarding one's neighbor, a discussion between ulama. Ibn Usaymin, rahimahullah, in his explanation mentioned regarding concerning that your neighbor is the person who lives beside you, but to what extent is that person said to be your neighbor? You have some riwayah, you mentioned there's some riwayah that mentioned the neighbors arba'un, that they are your neighbors like 40 houses. So 40 houses meaning 10 to your right, 10 to your left, 10 in front and 10 behind. But hadith that riwayah to be looked at, but he mentioned that even that was the case, that in our time that regarding concerning your neighbor, it goes back to urf. At that then the lifestyle was different. Today things a bit more, things are much different, where you have no neighbor even above you and below you. So with today's time you have neighbors above, to your right, to your left, in front, behind, above and below. You have neighbors in all directions, based upon the system that we have for today regarding our houses. But overall regarding, that is matter regarding how many houses that are said to be your neighbor, that are deserving certain rights, more rights than to others. They mentioned regarding concern that it goes back to the urf of those people. So the Shaykh mentioned that it must go back to the urf, or a custom of the people, regarding how many people of your neighbor that you're kind of somewhat are deserving this special treatment. That all, so that overall concern, everyone in your locality, that they're deserving to be treated fairly and justly and given their due rights. But some more than others. So the ones who live closer to you, they're deserving more of that rights, because they're said to be your direct neighbors. But all the people that live in your neighborhood that you meet on a day-to-day basis, that they're deserving rights and to be treated fairly and justly. And they see you and you treat them with good conduct and behavior. But regarding your neighbor, then they're deserving more as the other people that they are They are your neighbors that you see them on a regular basis and you have to interact with them more compared to others. So regarding concerning the neighbors, I mentioned of those hukuk that they deserve concerning hifz, hajjar. The person have a right somewhat to preserve your neighbor. Regarding concerning preserving your neighbor regarding his wealth, his children, and also his honor. And also that you do not per se, so regarding concerning his wealth, his property, regarding concerning his house, that as your neighbor, you're supposed to try to preserve and to protect regarding concerning your neighbor's regarding the house and his property and his belongings. So in our situation, I mean concerning the house of your neighbor, that regarding concern that you yourself are not involved or a part of stealing anything from your neighbor or taking things from your neighbor without his permission. Also with his property. So mal will mean concerning that his wealth and also his property. So his wealth financially and also his property, that you honor this. Not to break into his house or assist others in this. Also with his property, not to enter it except with his permission, not to use the things of your neighbor except with their permission, or they give you, or you have an understanding with your neighbor. So those things that you protect your neighbors regarding those things. Also not to destroy your neighbor's property. Also regarding concerning that al-hifz regarding is what? Regarding concerning your garbage is not thrown onto his property and the likes. Even to the extent that when you clean up your, because that also concerned in certain country that you share, and say, you have lawns in this country. You don't have it that much. Depending on if you live in the outside, outside. But even with a personal lawn, for example, if you have lawn and you trim concerning your lawn, also you do the same thing for your neighbor. So those things, so you can somewhat, so with his property, then you try to preserve and protect his property. And also regarding concerning his walad, wa awlad, his children, and also his family. So his wife is to be honored. And the worst of the type of transgression regarding the neighbor, regarding his wife, that the person that having a relationship with your neighbors, family members. That's the worst of those type of relationship. The worst of relationship, the person who have a relationship with his neighbor's wife. So a person to protect his neighbor regarding those things, regarding their children, that you look out for them, and the likes, that if they do something that is wrong, also can someone you bring that attention, you correct them, and also if needs be, bring to the attention of their parents, that and also your neighbor regarding so those things regarding their children, and also regarding concerning that regarding their regarding concerning that their honor, not to be backbiting your neighbor, not to be slandering your neighbor, not to be lying with your neighbor, not to be plotting against your neighbor. So the person also not try to defame your neighbor. So the person try to avoid those things regarding his neighbor. That's concerning hifz al-jar, protecting your neighbors regarding those things. Also, they mention regarding concerning that is also include we also include regarding hifz al-jar, regarding concerning his other regarding his car. That the person you look out for his car type of thing. So protecting your neighbor's car or vehicle, or also that would be included. So those are concerning those matters regarding concerning protection of your neighbor. Second, regarding ihsan ila jar. So the second regarding of those hukuk in general, ihsan ila jar. So the person trying showing being good towards your neighbor, being good towards your neighbor. So that's concerning, and that of those things that Islam have emphasized in Quran, the Sunnah, regarding the person ihsan ila jar. So of those, it will be in a way concerning that regarding concerning good towards one's neighbor, regarding concerning one's conduct towards one's neighbor. So those things to be mindful regarding the person's behavior in how they treat their neighbor. In the sense of you meet your neighbor, you give him salam or greetings. Nam, with your neighbor. If he's Muslim, during Eid time, Ramadan, you share with them gifts. Or on occasion, you share with them gifts. Nam, if you have excessive things regarding food, then you share with your neighbor, especially if you know their situation may be a bit different. Nam, so ihsan towards the neighbor regarding that you are concerned regarding their general well-being. If they're ill, that you kind of somewhat assist, look out for them if they're ill, visit them, and the likes. So regarding concern ihsan towards them regarding in goodness. That by way of either by way of your speech or by way of your action. That's ihsan towards one's neighbor. Then that's concerning ihsan towards one's neighbor. Ihsan towards even one neighbor also take the shape regarding ad-dawah. So if your neighbor regard that they are non-Muslim, that also you try to ihsan towards your neighbor, that also that you try to invite them to Islam. Inviting them to Islam. And also regarding ihsan towards one neighbor, also they see the goodness in your character. They should a person display good character towards his neighbor. So if the neighbor is a Muslim, giving them salam, is a non-Muslim, giving the greeting, that is giving them greetings and the likes. So those are the ways concerning ihsan ila al-jar. That, for example, is a muqtasar book of the book that's called Adab al-Mufrad. So the book of Adab al-Mufrad by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, there's a muqtasar. So this one's like a condense of the book. So Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, that in his book Adab al-Mufrad, the adab, the conduct of the Muslim, that he mentioned regarding hukukul jar, haqqul jar in general. Then he mentioned regarding an yuhda ila akrabihim baban, also regarding the person that you share gifts with the one with your neighbors, and if the case the person that you have to make a choice, the one which is closest. So if you have limited thing that you have to give, you can't give to all your neighbors. You can give to some of your neighbors. You give to the ones that are closest to you. They are the closest houses towards you. If the neighbor also is a Muslim, then also the rights, it doubles as being a neighbor and also a Muslim. And if your neighbor is a Muslim and a family member, then also it increases concerning that, the rights that they have upon you, the rights of Islam, and also the rights, if they are family member, also I've said Muslim and a family member, that also increase the rights that they have upon you. So the Muslim to be mindful of that. They mentioned wala yushbah duna jari, that they mentioned that the person also that you're not being fed full while your neighbor is hungry, going and stand without food. So you are somewhat comfortable, you're satisfied regarding your food and your provision, but your neighbor is not, and you know his situation. And you know his hal, you know his situation. So for you to go sleep, if you feel that you know that you're comfortable regarding your situation, your family, but know that your neighbor is a complete opposite situation, then that's Islam. And the person mentioned, Laysa al-mu'min, that is not of the mu'min, alladhi yashba wa jaruhu ja'i. That is not a Muslim, means a Muslim who's proper. That he know that he is comfortable regarding his provisions, but his neighbor, he goes, and he knows that his neighbor is hungry, going without food. Then that's after the quality of the character of the Muslim. So these are the things regarding the Muslim that he should be mindful of regarding towards his neighbor. And I mentioned that of important, I mentioned ajar as-salih. So ajar as-salih, the person having you being good towards your neighbor to the best of your ability. Now, I will not say the person that you might have a neighbor that you have tried with them. Now, you understand what I'm saying? You have a neighbor, you have tried with them, but it's just not working out. Now, in that case, then, understand, for your better, then, is now you have to now draw a line, because you have tried what you can, but you're not the one who's trying to initiate, trying to make the situation even worse. Where sometimes you not go out and kind of punch their car and throw things in their house. You will not do those things. Now, but you can somewhat just say, I cut my ties with this person. Now, because you have tried your best and things did not work out. Now, and sometimes a person might have that neighbor where you have to somewhat, you have to not leave them on their own. You have to just leave them on their own. So that's the general thing, the person having a good neighbor. Nam, as a Prophet mentioned concerning min sa'adat al-mar al-Muslim, I think that's not the success of a Muslim. He mentioned al-maskin al-wasi, the person of a comfortable house, wa jar as-salih, and after that the person of a righteous neighbor, a good neighbor. And I mentioned markab, honey, the person also having a good form of transport. So generally concerning Islam encourage regarding being the Muslim being good towards his neighbor. These are those things that the Prophet Islam considered a sign of Iman, that a person is able to be a good Muslim, a good person towards his neighbor, to be good towards his neighbor. Then it mentioned the next of those that it mentioned that's concerning a jar in general concerning. Then it mentioned the next which is concerning al-diyafa regarding and yukrim dayfahu, the third that is mentioned regarding of the things of the Muslim that he tries to strive for is regarding being good towards others, and of those people regarding of how he host and treat his guest. After that, I mentioned regarding concerning that diyafa, that is more so the person who's traveling from outside, a traveler to visit you. So either concern the person who lives, so concern diyafa, they said that mudda ad-diyafa, they mention is 3 ayyam. So the times when you have regarding of hosting a guest, and that guest is normally a person who's from outside. Nam, that they mentioned is 3 ayyam. So the person traveling from outside, from a different city, a different region, and they have come to visit, then of the rights that they are having as a guest, as a leif, that they have 3 days. Now, anything above this, they mention it is sadaqah. So they have 3 days. If we can somewhat to try to assist them, to take care of their needs, and to host them, above this then, they become sadaqah. Now, Allahu Alam, our next this says that if you, for example, you invite that person, and maybe for a week, and that person says it under your care, then it's upon you for all that time, because you're the one who have brought that person, invited that person to come and to stay with you. So you're responsible for them from the time that they arrive until they go. Then as for the person, so 3 days, so the person like arrive, came to visit, and you're trying to host them, to take care of them, then the amount that you give them 3 days. You host them for 3 days. Regarding concern, you provide that you give them whatever you're able to give them regarding food, clothes, and shelter for that time period. They discussed regarding, and they mentioned what is jahiz. They said wajib. They mentioned yawm wa layla. Of the ulama who mentioned that what is wajib, the least is a yawm wa layl. 3 ayyam mustahab. Ma ba'da dhalik sadaqah. So you have a discussion between the ulama. So that's concerning the length of time regarding hosting a guest, that 3 days, the most. After this, the person can host a person for 3 days. Above that, then becomes a sadaqah. As for concerning that al-diyafa is the person said who's traveling from outside, from a different region to your locality. So that's concerning what is meant by this. A person who's traveling from outside is a traveler from outside visiting. So he's a visitor. Then as for concerning that they mention regarding if the person is local, meaning they have their own provision, they have their own house, they have their own place, they have their own stuff present. Then I mentioned to that person, then there's hosting him is thus considered to be for you sadaqah. Hosting a person who is local, residential, then you hosting that person, them staying over, that's a sadaqah from you. It's not something which is wajib, because they have their own place local that they can return back to.
After hearing the wajib, the person who doesn't host them for a day, entertainment for a day and
A night.
up to 3 days, a day and up to 3 days. A person doesn't do that, it's sin.
He could be sinful. Yeah, so the person the person had the ability to host and did not, then can be sinful upon them. Now, so it's a general ruling that
only the day after.
in that case, yes, like a visitor. Now, so the person like traveling from outside, and he's there, and the person has the ability to host them and to look after them, then it comes upon you to do so. Well, but when it becomes a general concern, it's become fard al-ain upon the people in that locality to take care of them according to their means. Like even some you mentioned, because they said that with today's now, they said because you have funduk, we call it a hotel, so they said that they understand that in the sense of you can still assist them where not necessarily today where they have to stay inside your house. You can say, okay, I'll take you to a hotel and host you in a hotel. Now, so it's not per se directly inside your place, but you still share some responsibility regarding assisting and aiding that person and check up on them. You understand? So maybe in your case, they say, okay, I put you in a hotel for 3 days. You understand? You have complete what is upon you. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to maybe go there every day to see them, because in the hotel, all their needs are being met. They have their food, they have shelter, they have place to wash. So all those things all their needs are being met. Now, and you're really concerned, they gave them the key and the 3 days are already paid for, then you have in some way fulfilled what is upon you to some extent.
For the one that lives in a place that's doi, for instance, maybe he shares a room with
Others.
yeah, like maybe his wife. He shares a room with his wife.
Oh, you are?
Self-contained. Can he still say, okay, you know what, when I come, I'll continue for like 3 days? Can he still do that?
If the person have that, then if the person does not have the ability, it's not upon him. The person in a situation where you cannot facilitate the person, then you can't. Now, so the person who is able, but the one who maybe their circumstance also, that person, traveler come into town, and for example, he come to see someone, but the person is a miskeen. You understand? The person's condition is that he cannot host him because of his own personal situation is not stable. Now, so the person, if you find that you have a situation where I like to host you in my house, but I don't have the means, then he can't. You might find, in that case, you might try to now assist him by finding somewhere else that he can stay or someone who can entertain him. But your situation is that you're unable to facilitate the person because of your situation. They have a discussion between some of the ulama, the fuqaha, regarding concerning with it. They mention that 3 days is the days and the amount of days to host that person, to entertain that person. They said that 3 days start from when? When the 3 days start? Is the time that a person from his arrival and for the next 3 days? Or the first day is not counted, the day of arrival is not counted as a day. And what comes the next day, you start from the next day. So it actually means 4 days. So the first day is not counted, the 3 days is counted from the day after his arrival. So you have a discussion between some of the ulama regarding concerning that matters of the khilaf, regarding the ulama, regarding as to what time, or when does the actual 3 days start. Is from the time of his arrival that he reaches you, the 3 days start from then, or his day of arrival is not counted. It's not counted, the day of his arrival, the other day is when it starts. As for anything, we said that above this, the person can entertain the person for above that, then that's the person, then that is something we said that is sadaqah. So instead of 3 days, that means person that after that you just throw the person out completely, but it is not per se upon you to the same extent. If you choose to increase, then that's upon the person, which is counted as sadaqah. And I mentioned concerning the hadith of Al-Miqdad ibn Al-Miqdad Abi كريمة قال قال رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام الليلة الضيف واجبة. فإن أصبح, so I mentioned that ليلة الضيف واجب, and consider it now, one night is wajib. Instead of it becomes a must upon a person to entertain the person regarding the guest. The hadith I mentioned in Ahmed, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, and Shaykh Albani, rahimahullah, all the hadith to be authentic. Then I mentioned regarding of those things regarding concerning that the adab of diyafa, regarding concerning if you're also a person of those adab to be mindful of. So of those ones regarding the person then of those things that a person provide for them from type of the basic provision of their adab, provide for the person if they need their basic provision. So the person like food and the likes. So those basic provision a person will provide for them. Now, I said in today's situation that either whatever we can provide for them regarding that provision, whether it is something that it is cooked by yourself or it's something that is bought, but a person can somewhat, you provide a person is basic, I said, meals that are provided for them. If they're, and in certain cases they can do it for themselves, but but it is something a person should consider. Or you're going to eat and the likes, so the person try to provide their basic provision regarding food. Also regarding concern that the person talaqatul wajh, that also that you show like that what taib al kalam, speak to the person, good speech and kalam to the person. That the person that have a welcoming face, as they would say, that so those type of things that the person to be mindful regarding if he can fulfill any of his needs, immediate needs, that can somewhat try to look into those things. So those things the person that is mindful of regarding being a host of the person, that also can somewhat try to bring upon a person concern that show concern of that make the person feel happy and comfortable. The person feels somewhat happy and comfortable regarding concerning what the service that you're providing for them and how they feel, and also regarding that also ihsan regarding al-wada, and also when the person now is leaving, also that you leave the person in a good way. So when the farewell is done in a good manner, and also when you the person in his arrival also is done in a good manner. It also is done in a good. So the person farewell and is istiqbal, the person being is upon his arrival, that is done in a good manner. So those things the person should be mindful of regarding the person also that his provision are somewhat in place regarding a place to stay, that food and drink and a place to sleep that is prepared for the person. So those are basic things regarding concerning al-diyafa that are mentioned. So this hadith is somewhat to discuss concerning those basic things regarding of a sign of iman, that a person that he attends to those things and strive to fulfill them in the best manner possible. Regarding concerning, he's mindful regarding his speech, that have to do with a person's speech, and the two others regarding ikram ad-dayf, regarding his relationship with others, and that regarding his guest, and also ikram ad-jar, and also his neighbor, which both goes into the person action and also speech. So both requires the person how he interacts with that person by way of speech and his action. So those are things regarding what is stated here by this particular hadith. So that inshallah ta'ala, that will end with this discussion regarding this particular hadith. And next week inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue seeing just and point something that to be mind that the time of the salat is changing. And the time that we normally start is 5:30, 5:30. Now, it's around 6:30. But now, the salat now comes around after 5:30. So it will come in after 5:40, the salat enters around that time. So based upon this, that next week inshallah, that will start maybe a bit earlier, 5, and go up until the salah, up until the adhan. Start at 5
to Salat al-Maghrib.
until say Salatul Maghrib. Naam, so we start. So it's until the Adhan. So we can somewhat start before the Salat at 5 and then go up until Salatul Maghrib. So that's concerning for next week, inshaAllah ta'ala, unless anything changes. وبالله التوفيق.